Welcome to the Tech Transform podcast by Oliver Wight Asia Pacific. I'm your host, Rod Hozack, and for the first time since Oliver Wight, the man, started the business more than 50 years ago, we're going back to the future to talk tech. With a wealth of experience in melding technology with business processes, I'm excited to face up to the challenge we're all going to have, and that is how do we leverage the tools and data we have now and at the same time capitalize on what's coming at us without ending up with an assortment of uncoordinated tools and data sets. After all, the goal should still be for everyone to be working to the same destination and the same set of plans. We want to help you navigate this era where tech integration is not just a nice to have, it is going to be essential for maintaining competitiveness and relevance. Our mission is to provide you with actionable insights and strategies that will keep you ahead in this dynamic tech environment. We've lined up a number of experts in planning systems and data management to give you a hands-on view. We will explore transformative insights from the last 30 to 50 years and peer into the future of tech in business planning. So be prepared to be inspired and equipped to face the changing tide of technology. Let's Tech Transform with Oliver Wight, navigating today, shaping tomorrow, and giving your career a head start by staying ahead of the tech curve. Before speaking with our guest, Dr. David Paynter, let's cut over to Olga Papageorgiou for the latest news in data management and AI.
About what's new in the world of AI. Recently, iPhone manufacturer Apple released a research paper titled The Illusion of Thinking. In it, Apple researchers tested the world's leading AI models, including OpenAI's ChatGPT Claude, with classic logic puzzles. The aim was to understand the limits of AI reasoning and how model performance changes with increasing task complexity, hoping to determine if these models actually understand the problems they're solving or just producing acceptable answers based on the patterns they learn. So what were the results? The models performed simpler tasks, but as the puzzle's complexity increased, unfortunately, the performance collapsed. So effectively, when problems got too hard, the AIs gave up or made basic mistakes. And the finding made quite a buzz because they challenged the idea that many hold that AIs can truly reason. As to be expected, not everyone agrees with Apple's conclusions. Critics have argued that the cause of the model collapse wasn't the AI itself, but the way that it was tested. Apple's method required step-by-step text instructions which used up the model's words limits and not giving ability to give full answers. However, if an AI was given the ability to solve the problem by writing code, for example, they should have been able to solve those problems with no issue. Overall, the debate highlights that there is more research needed to understand the best methodologies to test AI model capabilities. So what does this mean for organizations on their AI journey? If you're currently using AI or planning to use it to aid decision-making, teams need to be educated on the limitations of these models and have a governance framework that makes it possible for users to understand how the models are forming their recommendations in order for you to feel comfort before pressing the button on that decision. As always, though, I'm keen to hear our listeners' thoughts. Do you believe that AI is capable of human-level reasoning? If not, let us know why. I'm keen to hear all your thoughts. And if you want to read the paper for yourself, you can find it at machinelearning.apple.com/research/illusion-of-thinking. Or you could just put it into ChatGPT and they'll give you the link. Overall, I'm happy to share this news and I look forward to share more of what's new in the next episode.
Thank you, Olga. Today, we're diving into a topic that has been on companies' agendas for decades, and that is using the integrated business planning and integrated tactical planning processes as management processes, but addressing the AI question head on. So the title for this podcast is Digital Orchestration and How to Prepare for AI Augmentation for Integrated Business Planning and Integrated Tactical Planning. Dr. David Paynter is a global expert in strategy, operational planning, and technology for product-making businesses. He has published with CEDA, SAP, KPMG, apologies for all the acronyms, and his latest publication is Digital Orchestration, Refining Economies of Scale, published in the Australian Journal of Management. David balances his time between university teaching, publication, and client advisory. After 25 years industry experience across Europe and Australia, David saw the need to increase his skills in planning to support the accelerating changes in technology. He returned to teaching in 2014 and in 2022 completed his PhD on the breadth of available planning technologies for digital orchestration. Post-PhD, he joined SAP and supported businesses through to the SAP IBP Cloud Advanced Planning Technology across Australia and New Zealand. Today, David brings a rare combination of academic, industry, and technology expertise to the Oliver Wight Tech Transformation podcast. Good afternoon, David. Welcome.
Great to be here, Rod.
Thanks for agreeing to join us. I'm sure our listeners will get a lot out of the discussion this afternoon. Are you ready for the questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Let's start with your concept of digital orchestration. What does that mean for companies wanting to lead in planning and AI?
Digital orchestration is the art of synchronizing all the moving parts of the business. So we've got data, people, and systems across the design, creation, and sale of product-making firms, using digital tools to make value-adding decisions in real time. Let me unpack this. When MRP and then ERP systems started, the focus was on the calculation of requirements and centralized recording of transactions. Over time, these systems have become digital twins of the operational side of the business. This means that we have digital transparency of what has happened and happening, and therefore the ability to make tactical and strategic decisions on what we would like to happen next, and to implement the execution of those plans, to digitally orchestrate the operations of the business. Why this is important today is that the cost of technologies for digital orchestration have become so much cheaper and widely available, so much so that their use is no longer solely the domain of large, well-resourced corporations with ERP solutions. The research I published into technology used by small and medium Australian firms shows they are actively digitally orchestrating their product design, creation, and sale globally. The so what here for large corporations is twofold. Firstly, to expedite digital connectivity of operations, so as to mitigate the risk of being out-competed by smaller, more agile firms that are today digitally orchestrating their operations. And second, that's only through removing data silos and creating digitally connected operations that artificial intelligence can holistically leverage the collective intelligence of the enterprise and to make the best possible decisions and sustain the competitive advantage of the corporation.
A supplementary question. You made a comment about small to medium business. What's your definition of small to medium?
I actually work with the ATO definition, which is under 250 people.
Okay. And while that's not tiny, as far as resource allocation goes, anything under that, you just don't have enough people to do it all. It's making technology available to everyone.
My favorite example is one person working from the lounge room, orchestrating a business across China. And the sales side across Europe and the US. He never actually touches the product that he's innovated and orchestrating globally from Melbourne and making a very handsome 20% margin. One person can do that and make a multi-million-dollar business. Then you start to put a small group together and you've got a business of a reasonable size. It shows we have sizes from a single operator to several hundred orchestrating the design, make and sale of products without actually touching those products in the process.
If anything is an indicator that you've got to get in on this to maintain your competitiveness, that is one of them.
Absolutely. And we're all familiar with agility as being of small agility. As soon as we get into a larger organization, things don't move quite as quickly. And the risk here is the technology is becoming available and making smaller operators lower transaction costs and much greater abilities to scale globally with fewer resources. So when you've got agility and scale, you become a threat to larger operations who don't have the agility, but also are playing at the same scale level.
That segues into the next question. In your recent article, you emphasize hiring knowledge capital as the first step towards AI readiness. What does that really look like and why is it often overlooked?
This is important because knowledge capital is a blend of domain expertise and decision logic that lives in people. I was very fortunate as a graduate engineer at Ford Motor Company to experience the benefit of blending deep experience and academic knowledge to drive improvement. The Ford approach of requiring both experience and expertise is not widely held. So leaders often look to impose new technologies on teams that don't necessarily have the expertise to use the capabilities of those technologies. So while transactional efficiency improves, the potential benefits from algorithms and optimization is never fully realized, and teams revert to spreadsheets. With AI on the horizon, we're at risk of repeating this process. If you were to actually look at what percentage of the smartphone you're using, you'd probably find it was a very, very low percentage. We're in this space now where technology is well ahead of us. So what is most interesting here is that when we have big data analytics, corporations have quickly hired skilled, highly paid data analysts to leverage this new technology, analyzing largely static data to make once-off strategic decisions. Yet in these operational planning teams, who have access to larger data sets that are constantly changing dynamically, businesses often rely upon lower paid operational staff who are skilled in the production domain, but don't have that sort of data analytics and optimization training. And they're expected to do more analytically than their more highly paid data analyst colleagues, which is really curious in terms of this knowledge capital moves. So we're now seeking to extend the requirements on some planners to test and validate the new AI technologies for planning, but yet they're not skilled in the existing technologies. Promotion of good staff from the shop floor into the office can reward staff loyalty, but the role of the planner, capability of technology and expectation on the role has completely changed. This is the point I really wanted to bring out today. It's not just about buying a better tool. You've really got to have the capabilities increased to adopt and use and leverage these sort of tools to successfully implement and sustain advanced planning technologies like SAP IBP, and to support and test and validate the emerging AI technologies. New knowledge capital, not just transactional skills, is required. So outsourcing knowledge capital to software vendors and system integrators comes at a cost. And that cost is threefold. Firstly, reduce operational domain knowledge because people from outside your business don't know your business. Second, increase financial cost of implementation. And third, reduced economic sustainability of the technology that can be measured financially as return on investment. In fact, the more technology is implemented, the more investment is required in human capital, increased salaries, ongoing training, and managing higher staff turnover rates, because highly skilled people value new and interesting challenges, which equates to a changing job role and seeking promotions. And these are the people who can make the biggest contribution to the corporation's success. This is a natural reward of success. We hire the right people to bring us the right capabilities and take our business forward, but we quickly find that they get bored and they want their next challenge. So we need to be investing up front of that, acknowledging that this is going to happen, and therefore preparing the redundancy, the replacement, and the rotation of those staff. So we are constantly, as a business, providing sustainability in our planning processes, but providing that sustainability by making sure we plan for the continuity of staff going forward.
That's a fabulous summary of what's been missing in the last 30 or 40 years. Do you think you can skip the fundamental knowledge of a planning system and just move to AI?
It really depends. The key is making sure your data is not in silos. If your data is in silos, you can't get to an effective business AI. Advanced planning systems are a shortcut for those who don't have their planning data sets in one location. They can use the APS as a way of centralizing the data to leapfrog into AI. So if we're talking about AI for planning, we have to have that single location for our data to leverage history and current activity.
I didn't finish where I was going with the last 30 or 40 years. Because we haven't insisted on an ERP planning system being used, people have reverted to spreadsheets. To your comment about data silos, because I trust my data, but it's not kept in one repository. That's a nice segue to the next question, which is, let's talk APS implementation. You've said it's like building a bridge from operations to finance. Where do organizations most often fall short?
It's the engagement of finance teams in the planning process. I'm not referring to planning process here. I'm not referring to financial planning. I'm actually referring to operational planning. So what we typically find is that advanced planning systems are usually initiated by operations and then supported by IT, leaving finance as the decision maker on allocating investment funds. We recently ran a simple poll and found that only 10% of firms are using financial capabilities of their advanced planning system. Why? Because financial teams are happiest using spreadsheets and are not yet ready to change themselves. So we might be talking in the planning space and the operations space, but really we've got to start with getting our finance teams engaged and involved, because as we both know, Rod, integrated business planning is all around a financially driven process for the business. So when we talk about process maturity, we really need to start with building the bridge with finance. So my favorite example here is when a business invests in APS technology or a new IBP business process, as well as paying a team of demand planners working with sales teams to create volumetric forecasts, then the CFO asks the sales team to email their forecast in a spreadsheet so he can update the latest financial projections in a spreadsheet. So in one very simple act, that CFO has removed the integrity and accountability of the whole business financial forecast, revenue, cash flow, and treasury. To succeed, you need joint ownership for advanced planning systems and AI implementations. And that's in maturing the financial process. Finance lead the process that is traditionally foreign to them. And the greatest windfall for finance is actually learning the new process. The scenario capability in advanced planning systems really helps to guide business decision-making based on real financial numbers. Finance can use scenario capabilities to test different ideas that they might have, or to stretch the operation or do scenarios to see how they want to take the business forward before making that final decision. You can also take my other favorite, the product portfolio management process and product management review in the IBP planning process, which should be a collaboration between product marketing, supply chain, and finance. They're all involved in this process. If they're not aligned, EPS and AI just won't deliver that insight. It'll just automate the confusion between all parties.
That's a great answer. You're being nice. My experience is that finance do their own thing because they do not trust the operational data. And that has a double-edged sword, which means one, you've got a second set of numbers, which is your financial projections and planning data, and the opportunity to leverage the financial capability of a proper planning system is lost. Oh, and then you've got your third point, which is we now have another separate repository of data and they don't match.
I'll get a fourth one. As soon as you open the door for the sales lead to have a second set of numbers, you've removed accountability to deliver against the sales number, because now he has two sets of books and he can play between the one can be a little bit too low, one can be a little bit higher based on what number he's actually after. Bringing those together and then managing the sales lead to deliver on one sales number is what IBP is all about. And I'm sure we both had these conversations with clients.
I was one of the recalcitrant people because when I was in industry, I was asked for a forecast locally by corporate. And my first question was, who wants it? Second one was, what are they going to do with it? And they got a different number depending on the answers. That behavioural element's really critical.
If we wanted to get waste out of the operational system, we need to be working the whole system to a single number and reducing that forecast variance. That way we reduce working capital, treasury costs, potential risk of slobs in the process as well, and wastage. There's a lot of benefits and upside to be managing through the IBP process to a single number and keeping the system accountable for those numbers.
It's a nice segue to the next question. You talked about data granularity, especially moving from monthly to weekly or our integrated tactical planning process-based, or even daily planning can cause cost blowouts if misunderstood. Can you share examples of this working appropriately?
Businesses in different industries work at different levels of granularity. This is something we need to be thinking about when tackling these journeys, because based on the strategy underlying the three areas of integrated business planning that we both talk about, product, demand, and supply. So for example, if you're working the steel, it's supplied in monthly batches, whereas bread is supplied daily. Equally, decisions on capacity in steel can take years, while casual staffing on a factory can be made weekly. So understanding the business strategic decision-making cycle and the way in which data is stored and using the technology being employed is the key to shaping the most appropriate and efficient data granularity. There's no good having daily if you're running your operation monthly. You are just generating data cost without value or benefit. So one example was a dairy farm paying by hourly buckets, but ignoring variability in daily demand. So their system had the detail, but the logic didn't. So the result was overproduction and write-offs. In other case, firms implemented time-phase planning without respecting supply constraints, leading to the right forecast, but the wrong execution. So data needs to be at that level of granularity that supports the business decision-making, so the business does not become a slave to the data. I like to think about data granularity for planning in three ways. Firstly, what decision are we trying to make? Purchasing a machine for next year's sales, recruiting casual labor for next week, or scheduling the first hour of production for the day? Each of these questions requires a very different level of granularity. Secondly, what is driving the demand for your product? Do customers buy specific products or the product family? Are we better to invest in planning at a detail or family level? will yield the same outcome with a lower cost of planning investment. If you need to, you can disaggregate down to the individual products after you've planned at that family level. The third thing is, what is the smallest time buckets you use in your business? Do we plan hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly? Most businesses typically default to weekly planning, allowing for day-to-day variations. But there are exceptions like bread and steel, where there are two ends of the spectrum. Bread is special in terms of being at that lower or finer granularity, and steel, bottle making is another one, which is at that much larger aggregation. So granularity isn't about more data. It's about the right data at the right decision level. Understanding data granularity can't be outsourced to your software vendor or your system integrator as part of your business strategy. The business needs to own the knowledge capital around data granularity. And you can see here, I'm just talking again about that knowledge capital and investing internally in knowledge capital. So you can be having the conversations with your IT vendor, with your system integrator. So just as there are layers of process from the annual strategic and business plans down to that monthly integrated business planning process to the integrated tactical planning process, your strategic plan, you're not trying to guess what customer is going to order what SKU on what day, what volume, 5 years out. But you are going to need that information down the track.
That's a nice way to do it by industry. I have in my head time. And I'll give you an example. Fresh milk, yes, you've got to plan by hour and make sure you're not pouring milk down the drain. Same industry, specialty cheeses that have a maturation of 13 to 16 weeks don't need that level of detail. The mistake I see is that because you need that level of detail at one time point, they therefore say, well, I need that for 36 months. Therefore, I'm going to aggregate my plans, as opposed to having a time period that says I need that granularity. But outside that, I'm going to plan at a higher level, then disaggregate that. Should we need, for example, a supplier of a key ingredient and we're doing a contract 12 or 24 months out?
That's where we were talking about knowledge capital, having the right people who understand and can drive those conversations with the software vendors and the system integrators to make sure that you've got the right timeframes, you've got the right level of aggregation, a right level of investment in data, different points as you described. It's very hard as an outsider coming in because you're having to learn that whole process. That's one of the things that is missing in these conversations about advanced planning system implementation and about the introduction of AI. It's great to bring in the tool set, but actually what we need to do is bring in the headset. The knowledge capital, right? That's the key message I'd like to have from today's session.
Looking forward, as companies move from traditional ERP planning systems to AI augmented planning, what cultural and capability shifts do they need to make?
We have some really exciting times ahead here. I think AI is well used as a partner in decision making for customer relationship management, to triage transactional inquiries, and those requiring complex intervention by staff. And similarly, for AI augmented planning, saving planning teams valuable time to invest in more complicated operational challenges. Perhaps the biggest shift is cultural, from command and control to curiosity and co-creation. Leaders need to ask better questions and give teams room to test assumptions. In a world where we have instant gratification, taking time to work with AI augmented planning will require a growth mindset, to be open to seeking and considering potential new solutions while being prepared to continuously teach the AI to improve results. So capability-wise, it's much more about developing translators, people who can bridge the domain expertise of production and planning with data fluency and analytics. This requires investment in knowledge capital to assure sustainability in the return on investment on that new technology. AI augmented planning is not a bolt-on that will solve all problems. It's a partner in decision-making, won't replace planners, it'll amplify the best ones who can bring judgment and insight and navigate uncertainty.
A supplementary question, I'd get a feedback that the ERP system is too rigid and to change it is just too difficult. On the other end, we've got complete flexibility where we could drop an Excel spreadsheet in our transactional data and ask it all sorts of questions about how that might pan out in the future. Is there a middle ground, or are we going to go one way or the other?
One of the things discussed in previous podcasts is the notion of AI can leverage your history to help you have an understanding of what's next, but it can't predict the unknown. And one of my classics was to present to a metal detecting company. And on the morning of that presentation, fortunately, I did check in on the news before the presentation. Otherwise, I would have been in serious trouble. There was a 2.8 kilogram nugget of gold found in the goldfields. Can any planning system or AI predict that 2.8 kilogram nugget would be found? No. So I think we've got to be realistic around what is the capability of these systems. AI makes it easier for the planner, but AI is doing what your APS has always done. It's drawn on history and thinking quicker than the human, considering what the future will look like, without the exceptions of the 2.8 kilogram nugget of gold being found. Practically speaking, we're talking about gathering information and you're considering different analytical tools in order to make a projection of the future based on the past. There'll be processes you'll be able to adopt, which will simplify it. So rather than you having to hunt through a whole series of alerts, you'll use AI to expedite where you invest your time. It is an augmented piece where you're augmenting human knowledge and artificial knowledge, but to remove the inefficient parts of that process. Ultimately, it's another tool that's still going to be doing the same thing, which is looking backwards to look forward. There's a lot of new opportunities because, as we've seen in 2025, perhaps the ability to project forward is less predictable now with a number of geopolitical changes. That's opening up challenges. With instant information and communication, we can get flags of potential risks to look at and investigate what's happening more quickly, but still it's not going to predict the 2.8 kilogram gold find when the next one's going to take place. If it is, Rod, I'm going to be looking for that forecast.
What I heard, and going back to the earlier answers, is we've got to know the decisions we want to make and in the right time frame. The second is we need a plan and a planning process based on our business model. But then the last bit is to be able to simulate what would we do if we were to find the gold, or something was to happen, or COVID was to happen again, or a boat was stuck in the Suez Canal. If we've got the data there, we would be able to say, here are the things that might come out of that, and this is what we would do, which is what I see the real power in both the integrated business planning process and the integrated tactical planning process. Your thoughts?
I completely agree. Once that data is in the one place and you've got the human capital to work with the data and the algorithms, then you're able to leverage the available technology and tools to respond, not just in terms of long term, but also in terms of tactically in the short term. The improvement in agility comes from the investment in knowledge capital and technology to compete and outcompete those who are smaller and agile. So businesses have a real challenge of how do we actually turn the tide, rethink about planning teams, their function and role, and think about that being the engine room and the knowledge capital of our business, and potentially merge them, if they have them, with the more highly paid data analysts, and bringing that knowledge capital alongside the domain expertise, bring that together as one holistic knowledge capital team driving the planning engine for the business.
We might have answered it, but it's a good segue into one of our client-generated questions. We're not a tech-first company, but we want to prepare for AI and planning. Where do we start?
Great question. My response is, do you want to be a tech-first company? If you're making products, you want technology to support product making activities. So in the paper that I wrote, I recommended a three-step approach. Number one, hiring the knowledge from within your business. Create redundancy too, like a backup person or a person in training, in waiting. And this way you're building a bridge from your business to the software vendor and the system integrators with an internal leader who can talk in technical language and assure that you achieve the required digital transformation. It's a very expensive and non-sustainable solution if you don't invest in your knowledge capital. Second, invest in a cloud-based advanced planning system that allows the consolidation of planning and transactional data into one data platform. Assess your data landscape. Is it clean, structured, accessible? Map the decision flow, who makes them and how. Whether you choose SAP, IBP, or another APS solution, having the internal knowledge capital will ensure alignment between the business processes, business goal, and the existing IT architecture. Why cloud? Always a really good question because some people still aren't quite there. This ensures a secure environment that enables your business to innovate, leveraging the latest software innovations released every 3 to 6 months. But of course, it only gives you a step up if you've got the knowledge capital there to take advantage of that step up. And the third, it's back to training. You're going to train the AI and the human capital to assure business continuity and sustainability. The best people learn fastest and will pass through the role of planner to future leadership. So be prepared to be constantly hiring and actively rotating staff to achieve the best outcome from your investment in AI augmented planning.
If I could summarize, you can't leave this to chance. You've got to take a deliberate, strategy-driven approach, not the tool, but the people. Then you can expand the technology or the bright, shiny objects as you get really good at it. David, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Good. Excellent.
See you, David.
Thanks, Rod. Bye.
That was a fantastic wander through a wide variety of topics and perspectives. What's clear is that success in AI planning isn't about adopting the latest tool. It's about aligning people, platforms, and the technology and processes around a shared purpose. For our listeners, ask yourself a few questions. Are your planning decisions driven by insight or habit? Do your planning tools serve your people, or is it the other way around? Are you preparing your team to be AI trainers, not just users? Don't miss our next episode where we will continue the journey into unlocking technology to facilitate better processes and decision-making. If you want to contact David to understand more, you can contact him via LinkedIn, and here's his LinkedIn address. Make sure to subscribe and join us again to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in tech transformation. Also, let us know how we're doing by giving us a thumbs up and leaving a comment. If you'd like to talk to us about how we can help your business with tech transformation, contact us at information@oliverwight.com or go to our website at www.oliverwhiteasiapacific.com. So let's tech transform with Oliver Wight, navigating today, shaping tomorrow, and giving your career a head start by staying ahead of the tech curve. See you next time.